And here's another difficult choice. The bill to construct the first phase of HS2 had its second reading in the Commons this week. A large chunk of our region's Conservative MPs abstained, and the Prime Minister, rather strangely, managed not to be there at all. But even so, it passed fairly comfortably because Labour is supporting it. So is that all done and dusted? Maybe not. Mike Kerford-byrnes has been campaigning against it for several years, joins us now from our Oxford studio. You've got on to arguing about the compensation that's needed. Does that mean you've accepted its inevitability?
Well, I mean, I haven't been arguing about the compensation specifically. We've been arguing about the whole principle to start with. But given that the second reading's gone through, our emphasis and activity now is focused on trying to mitigate what is going to happen during the construction and subsequently during the operation, because unlike the lucky folk in Bournemouth and Reading who've only got to pay for it, we've got to pay for it and live with it. You've
got some figures for how much they have got to pay as well.
Yes, I looked at the figures for the electorate in 2010 and the number of electors per household, the number of electors in Bournemouth and Reading, and the electors of Bournemouth will contribute £72 million towards HS2, and the residents of Reading will contribute about £154 million towards HS2. I just wonder how much infrastructure it could build around that area rather than somewhere else.
Conor Burns, you could do an awful lot with that money, couldn't you?
Well, look, first 2 points on this. Firstly, this idea that there's £50 billion that's floating around, that if we didn't spend it on this, we could spend it on something else. That money isn't floating around. We're still in budget deficit. We're borrowing this money. It's over a 20-year period. It is going to connect 8 of the largest cities in the north of England. I actually think to some degree the government have got the argument on this wrong. It's not so much about speed, although that is an element. It's about capacity. The line is full. And if we are going to have a proper national economic policy, we need major infrastructure projects. Where I agree with my colleague there is that we do need to look at mitigation, and some of my colleagues who are going to be affected by it are doing a formidable job in lobbying the Department of Transport for effective mitigation of the project.
Yeah, but it feels a bit inevitable. Tony Page, 2,000 lorries a day for more than 2 years to build this line. That's going to be 1 lorry every 10 seconds. It's going to affect Reading. It's going to affect the whole of the south of England.
Reading's probably not the best example. We've got nearly £1 billion worth of new station and investment in Reading, and that's part of a national infrastructure provision, and all these schemes require substantial planning and delivery times, and they're all in the national interest. I agree absolutely with what Conor just said. I want to see a network of high-speed lines across the whole country, not just north-south. I think they should go to the south-west, to South Wales.
In Reading. That could do an awful lot for your buses.
Our buses are the newest and best in the country. We have the Bus Company of the Year in Reading. So again, and that's because of good forward planning and investment.
Yes.
And I have to say, I don't buy this argument that you could spend money on something else, because as Conor rightly said, this is a long scheme. Yeah. We're borrowing for investment that will last us 150 years. So the payback on this is huge.
Mike Kerford-byrnes, they don't buy it at all. You know, they'd rather the money was spent building the railway line next to your house.
Well, all right, if they want to go and build it, perhaps they would also contribute to making the impact of it less, given the commitment by Mr McLaughlin and Mr Hammond that they will do everything possible to mitigate the impact of the construction and operation of the line on the people and the environment who are affected by it.
Well, what can they do? You can't magic this line, can you?
No,
It's got to be built.
I mean, at the moment, they're currently proposing to have the various construction compounds all the way along the line continuous overnight lighting. Now, where in the middle of Cherwell district, in which I live, it's dark. They're going to have lights on for 3 years, right around the clock, because of the need to keep the compounds clear. That's the first thing. Secondly, the traffic issue has only just popped up recently. It was only announced, the numbers were actually published for the first time in November of last year. We've now, when you talk about 2,000, you're talking 2,000 lorries a day for 2 years at one junction of the M40. You didn't mention the other areas. The next junction of the M40 is going to be similarly affected, although not quite to such a high degree, for a similar period of time.
Right. You're saying they should be on the railways, Tony Page?
I agree with the spirit of what Bill's saying. the mitigation measures, we're very poor in this country. We always cheapskate. We never put enough money into mitigation like the French and the Germans and the Italians do. But you should be insisting, we should be insisting, and I will support you on this, that all the spoil and the equipment, it comes in by rail.
That's going to make it very expensive, though,
This is a
isn't it,
rail
Conor Byrnes?
project, for heaven's sake.
I totally understand what the councillor is doing in arguing for his community. It's the job of him, and with respect to his members of parliament and surrounding members of parliament who are affected, to get in there and bang on the Secretary of State for Transport's door and make the argument as to how to mitigate.
OK, all three of you, thank you.
Can I chip in there?
We've got to leave it there, I'm afraid. It's a high-speed discussion.